Woo! Wasn't that great? Woo! 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 We had some great music. We have a great crowd. We have Bernie in town. Woo! What a beautiful night! Woo! Woo! Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. My name is Maria Bribiesco. I live in Bettendorf. I immigrated to Iowa in 1980 from Texas. That's a joke. It was a pioneer family. That means they did not cross the border crossed them. My dad was a veteran, but that didn't help him get a job. Times were very tough. My parents eventually made the decision to have the family become migrant farm workers. We worked very hard. We struggled financially until there was a big change in governmental policies. Lyndon Johnson's Great Society lifted many families, including mine. Tax dollars were put back into the community, invested in public education, in science, in the people. Because of the financial aid policies, I was able to go to college and then to law school. I got a little slice of the American pie. Yeah, the country was moving forward. It was progressing. Now the country is going backwards. The policies of the current administration are cruel and brutal. People are struggling. They have to work more than one job and they still can't make ends meet. Yeah, boo. We can no longer expect pensions. Instead, we're offered defined contributions, and these are retirement funds that are now at the mercy of an unregulated Wall Street and market. Even our Social Security is not safe. Separating children from their families, putting children in cages, that's wrong. It's inhumane, and that's not us. Now in 2020, we have the opportunity to stop the greed and the cruelty. Yeah. 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 We have the chance to elect a person who has worked all his life for justice, economic justice. Yeah. His actions, his voting record clearly shows a man that believes that the government should work for the people and not corporations. He understands that the politics of fear and hate are being used to divide us and to distract us from the economic policies that are robbing us of our dreams, our human dignity, and our security. He's a man of the people, a man for the people. He's a champion of the people, and that's why I support him. Yeah. I support Bernie Sanders, the next president of the USA. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage local labor organizer and former Iowa State House candidate, Jay Saxon.
Hello, Quad Cities! All right! Look at these birdie signs. It's a beautiful thing. My name is Jay Saxon. I'm a proud steelworker for the local 105 in Bettendorf. Where's my labor family out there? Who's a union member out here? Sound off! Yes, be proud! I want to point out something historic tonight. For the first time in our history, workers in a presidential campaign have formed a union. So, these brothers and sisters in Bernie's campaign are now proud UFCW members. Let's welcome them to the labor family. All right. So yeah, I'm a steel worker. For the past 31 years, I've done my job, raised a family. I've been an activist for workers' rights. I've organized, I've marched, I've lobbied. I've served my union in various capacities over the years. During those 31 years, I've heard many seeking office refer to themselves as friends of labor. But with the sole exception of former Illinois Congressman Lane Evans, I have never heard a federal office holder who speaks our language, who walks the talk like Bernie Sanders. That's right. He's one of us. In September 2015, and this is one of my favorite memories of my lifetime, I walked a picket line with Senator Sanders at Penford Products in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I'll never forget the feeling of hope that gave me, the hope for our future, that we'd have a common man that understood our common dreams as our president. We're going to make that happen this time around, folks. That's right. That wasn't my first exposure to Bernie and his ideals. In 2011, during the Occupy Wall Street protest, I heard a strong, eloquent, and clear voice speak about a corrupt system bought and controlled by multinational corporations and international banks. The Occupy movement and Bernie's impassioned speeches led to a change in how I was involved in politics. It led me to join the Democratic Party and advocate for progressive ideals at the State Platform Committee, campaign for labor-friendly candidates, and in 2014 seek office myself. During that campaign in May of 2014, Senator Sanders made his first visit to Iowa, speaking at an event hosted by the Clinton County Democrats. He captivated the crowd and moved many to embrace his ideas. I'm sorry I didn't hear that one. The memories I have shared today show how far we've come in a relatively short time. Ideas that were labeled fringe in 2011 have massive support across the political spectrum today. Their time has come. The time for change, time to end corporate control of the government our founders gave to us. It's time to take the progressive message to every door in Iowa. It's time to elect the president this nation so desperately needs. My brothers and sisters, my fellow Iowans, it is time for Bernie Sanders.
Please welcome to the stage President of QC Harm Reduction, Kim Brown.
I'm not connected to any XLR audio, just my own.
Naloxone, the overdose reversal drug, was not readily available when Andy died. We set out to change that in our community, and QC Harm Reduction was founded shortly after his death. We provide free naloxone kits and training for our street outreach program because of our work here in Iowa since January 1, 2019, 187 overdose reversals were reported. Wait! We know that only about 10% of overdose reversals are formally reported, so it's reasonably to assume we've saved a lot more lives in our community. In Iowa, we spend more money arresting and incarcerating people who use drugs than we do on effective, readily available treatments such as methadone and Suboxone. The barriers to the most recommended evidence-based care are often difficult to navigate, and treatment access will not be solved with a for-profit health care system. What we need right now today is a Medicare for All healthcare delivery system to remove the barriers to the most effective substance use treatment available. Health equity should not be an entitlement or a privilege for a few, but rather a right that is shared by all Americans. I believe that Bernie Sanders will get this done. I support him for president and
Please welcome to the stage campaign co-chair, Senator Nina Turner.
Hey, darling, I love you too. Wow, you know, can I just pause for a minute? Kim did that, and the fact that she poured out her heart and she shared the story about her son to be of strength to us. Can we give her another hand clap of praise? Get my notes out my purse. I bring you word this evening from two folks from our past that I think encapsulates the moment that we are in. One is from Congresswoman Barbara Jordan, and the other is from President Teddy Roosevelt. Congresswoman Barbara Jordan once said that what the people want is simple. They want an America as good as its promise. That's all. Not asking for too much. Just an America as good as its promise. And President Teddy Roosevelt said these words, and I want you to wrap your mind around these words. He said, "This country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in." That's it. A good place for all of us to live in. And what the people want is simple. They want an America as good as its promise. And we have in Senator Bernard Sanders. I just like saying that full name, you know. But what we have in him is someone who has encapsulated that type of synergy and energy and commitment all of his life. Because he understands from a lived experience what it means to struggle. His father came from Poland at the age of 17 years old. So to my immigrant sisters and brothers, he understands from his father's experience, through a lived experience, what it means to try to come to a place to live a better life. And it wasn't just an ordinary. His father escaped the Holocaust. That's serious business. So from a lived experience, having his mother die at a very young age, with her dreams deferred. When Langston Hughes asked in one of his most important poems, what happens to a dream deferred? His lived experience. He grew up in rent-controlled housing in Brooklyn, New York, and he tells the story about his mother, how his mother, she always dreamed of owning a home, but she didn't live long enough to realize that dream. We have in Senator Bernie Sanders a champion whose lived experience informs his fight for the working people of this country. Because what the people want is simple. And none of us can live a good life unless all of us live a good life. Senator Sanders is a first-generation college graduate. So for those of you who understand that, and our young people who are in college right now being saddled with trillions of dollars worth of debt, he understands. So what this political revolution is about, sisters and brothers, it is about all of us. We know that Senator Sanders has been, in the words of Dr. Cornel West, a long-distance runner for justice. In the words of Michael Render, a.k.a. Killer Mike, that to fight off Magneto, we need Professor X. And in the words of your sister Nina Turner, Senator Sanders has the type of heart-soul agreement that we need to lead this country to the next level. He gets it. He understands it. And can I just say, Davenport, can I just share something with you? He didn't just start this. We have all the receipts from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago to back it up. When he says that he's fighting for Medicare for all, you know he can't be bought off. When he says that he will stand up for college for all, including trade schools from preschool to college or trade schools, he can't be bought off. And when he says that he will stand up against Wall Street and pharmaceutical companies, he can't be bought off. He can't be bought off. I mean, who looks Bezos in the eye? Figuratively anyway, and said, raise your wages to $15 an hour. Who tells Disney that Goofy and Mickey Mouse are probably not as happy because you're not paying your workers a living wage? Who stands on the picket line with the workers from Verizon to Marriott? One job should be enough in America. Who marches on Canton, Mississippi with the Nissan workers? Senator Bernie Sanders. He says what he means, and he means what he does. In him, we know that when he gets to the White House, him and Dr. Jane Sanders, that you can take this all the way to the bank, that he will stand up for the everyday people of this country, because he has always stood up for the working people of this country. But you know what? He can't do it without you. And you, I love you too, baby. and you and you and you and you and you. It is all of us together, the rainbow mosaic of humanity, standing together. Are we willing to sacrifice something for causes that are bigger and greater than us? Are we willing to come together on a mission? On a mission. Because can I just say this? Our mission is so high we can't get over it. And our mission is so low we can't get under it. And our mission is so wide we can't get around it. This transformational change that needs to come to this country will only come if we are dedicated and willing and able to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And sisters and brothers, with these hands, I need everybody in this room to raise one hand for yourself and another hand for somebody else. With these hands, we will have Medicare for all. With these hands, we will have college for all. With these hands, we will have clean water, clean food. With these hands, we will have comprehensive immigration reform. With these hands, we will transform the criminal justice system. And with these hands, we will elect Bernie Sanders, the next president of the United States of America. Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. Woo.
Thank you, Davenport. You are a loud crowd. Thank you. I think they're hearing you in Vermont, so that's good. Let me thank Maria Bribriesco for her remarks. Let me thank Jay Saxon for his remarks. Let me thank Kim Brown for all the work she is doing. And let me thank my colleague, Senator Nina Turner. Senator Turner has been traveling this country from one end to the other, doing the most important work, and that is creating a grassroots movement that is going to transform this country. Thank you, Senator Turner. Before I get into my remarks here in Davenport, I did want to make a few comments. And I wanted to tell you, I'm being funny here, so don't get excited, but that I was a little bit apprehensive about coming back to Iowa because, as you know, President Trump, who, as you all know, is a self-described stable genius. That's him saying it, that's not me. And we know the president never lies about anything, so must be true. He made, now this is important, he made a very important scientific announcement a few days ago. And that announcement made me very nervous. You see, after a deep scientific study, the president has determined that wind turbines cause cancer. Now, this is a major development because Donald Trump is the first person in the world to have reached that conclusion. In any case, as you all know, Iowa gets about 35% of its electricity from wind. Congratulations, Iowa. But that means you got a lot of wind turbines. So I was sitting here wondering, if I come to Iowa, am I and my staff going to get cancer? But I think not. I'm delighted to be here. So having overcome the wind turbine cancer scare, let me get on to a more serious note. And on this one, I really do have a serious request of the President on a very, very important issue. Some of you may know that on Thursday, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a resolution that I had worked on very, very hard in the Senate, and was passed in the Senate a couple of weeks ago, and that was to get the United States out of the Saudi-led intervention in Yemen. And the reason we worked so hard on that resolution was, number one, as some of you may know, media doesn't talk about it all that much, but in Yemen right now, there is the worst humanitarian disaster on the planet. Tens of thousands of children have already starved to death. Cholera is in epidemic form, and there is great fear among some of the folks there that that very poor country could literally swerve into a famine costing millions of lives. So, in our view, what Yemen needs now are not more bombs, but they need humanitarian aid, and they need And the other important point about that resolution, and this is in fact a very big deal, is that, as some of you may know, about 45 years ago, the United States Congress, as a result of the war in Vietnam, passed the War Powers Act. You familiar with that? And what the War Powers Act basically said, it gives Congress the authority to end wars that presidents start. For the first time in 45 years, we have successfully utilized the War Powers Act to stop the war in Yemen. And what is important about that is not only ending the horrific situation in Yemen, but it is the Congress beginning to reclaim its constitutional responsibility for war issues. The Constitution is very clear. Article 1, Section 8. It is Congress that declares war, not the President. And the truth is that under Democratic and Republican presidents, Congress has not exercised that authority. This resolution is the beginning of us taking back that important responsibility. Now, President Trump, and on this one I am serious, he has appropriately stated his dislike for U.S. involvement in never-ending wars, and on that score, he is right. And so I urge the President tonight not to veto this resolution. Sign the resolution. Get U.S. troops out of Yemen. Let's do that. Tonight, here in Davenport, there's a great turnout, by the way. Thanks so much for being here. And, well, I love you too, and it has been an honor for me to be traveling all over the state and meeting so many people here in Iowa. You've made me feel very much at home, and thank you very much for that. This campaign that we are waging together is not only about winning the Democratic nomination, it is not only about defeating Donald Trump, the most dangerous president in modern American history. But what this campaign is about, with your help, is transforming the United States of America so that we have an economy and a government that works for all of us, not just the 1%. And today I want to welcome you to a campaign which says loudly and proudly that the underlying principles of our government will not be greed, will not be kleptocracy, will not be hatred or lies. The underlying principles of our government will not be racism, sexism, xenophobia, homophobia, or religious bigotry. That is what the Trump administration is about, and together we're going to bring that to an end. The principles of our government will be based on justice, and that means economic justice, it means racial justice, it means social justice, and it means environmental justice. So tonight I want to welcome you to a campaign which tells the powerful special interest who have enormous power over the economic and political life of our country that we will no longer tolerate the greed of Wall Street, the greed of corporations, or the billionaire class. We are sick and tired of the greed which over a 40-year period has destroyed the middle class of this country. And in destroying the middle class of this country, that greed has also resulted in more income and wealth inequality than almost any other country on earth, and worse than at any time since the 1920s. That is going to end. Now, I'm going to tell you things that very few candidates will talk about. You don't see much of it in the media. You don't hear it in Congress. But I think we have got to be loud and clear. And I am loud, that's true. And that is that we will not accept a situation in America where three families, 1, 2, 3, own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. And meanwhile, while so few have so much, school districts like Davenport face budget cuts and teacher layoffs. So that's the reality. The reality here, and it's important for us never to forget it, we are the richest country in the history of the world. If we are a poor country, then we say, well, it's too bad, our kids can't get a decent education. We're a poor country, we can't provide health care, we can't do environmental protection. That is not the case. We are the richest country in the history of the world, and we are sick and tired of austerity for working families. The time is now for austerity for the billionaire class, not for working families. We will no longer accept 49% of all new income going to the top 1%, while in Iowa and in Vermont and all over this country, people are forced to work 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the bills. And over half of our people live paycheck to paycheck. You know what that means? Let's take a deep breath and think about that. If you live, and I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck, what it means, just think about it. The car breaks down. You can't get to work. You can't get to work, you get fired. You get fired, you can't take care of the kids. You live paycheck to paycheck, and your kid comes down with a serious illness and ends up in the hospital, and your family goes bankrupt because you can't afford to pay those bills. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Half of our people should not be forced to live under that kind of stress. And when we talk about the economy, I want to say something to the young people, and that is we will not accept a situation in which our younger generation will, unless we turn it around for the first time in the modern history of our country, have a lower standard of living than their parents. This is a generation of young people leaving school deeply in debt, unable to afford a home, unable to buy a car, earning less real income than their parents. Now, I've got 4 kids, and I've got 7 beautiful grandchildren. Downward mobility is not acceptable to me. This campaign is about moving people up, not down. Today, we are going to begin working on a political system which is based on the democratic principles of one person, one vote. So our struggle is not only to create an economy that works for all, but we cannot do that if you have a corrupt political system in which billionaires are able to buy elections. So our job together is to overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. Our job together is to end this cowardly voter suppression. And our job is to move toward public funding of elections so that any person in this room, any person of any political belief can run for office without being dependent on wealthy campaign contributors. And tonight I want to offer a very special thanks to the people of the great state of Iowa. And I'll tell you why. In 2015, this is where the political revolution began. Thank you, Iowa. And I'll tell you what I mean by that, and many of you will recall it. When I first came here to campaign in 2015, the truth is, not a whole lot of people in Iowa knew who I was. Truth is that the political establishment and the media establishment did not take our campaign seriously. And the first polls, as I recall, here in Iowa had us at all of 3%. Further, the ideas that we were talking about when we had meetings here in Davenport and all over the state, the ideas that we were talking about then were considered by establishment politicians and mainstream media to be radical and to be extreme. Ideas they said nobody in America would support. Bernie is a nice guy, but he's crazy. You know, nobody believes in that stuff. Raising the minimum wage to a living wage, too radical. Guaranteeing health care to all people as a right. Oh. Much too radical. Creating up to 15 million jobs by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure with $1 trillion investment. Too radical. Expanding Social Security rather than cutting it. Whoa! Aggressively combating climate change. Oh, my God. Much too radical. Reforming our broken criminal justice and immigration systems. Too radical, can't be done. Now here's one. Imagine somebody wanting to be president of the United States and not establishing a super PAC funded by billionaires. Oh my God. What a crazy idea. You can't run for president and not get supported by the billionaire class. And here's another one. Imagine this one. Ending the power of superdelegates at the Democratic Convention. Well, brothers and sisters, a funny thing happened in Iowa over that year. That's exactly what you did. On caucus night, we didn't win 3% of the vote. We won 50% of the vote and half of the pledged delegates. So what Iowa showed, what the people of Iowa showed, is that these ideas were not radical, they're not extreme, they are common sense ideas that the people of Iowa supported. And that great start in Iowa led us in that campaign to end up winning 22 states around the country, over 13 million votes, more than 1,700 delegates at the Democratic Convention. And this, to me, is perhaps the most important thing that we accomplished. We ended up winning more votes from young people, black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian Americans. More votes from young people than Trump and Clinton combined. And by the way, those ideas that we talked about 4 years ago that seemed so very radical at the time, well, today, virtually all of those ideas are now supported by a majority of the American people, and they are ideas supported. They're ideas now supported by Democratic candidates from school board to President of the United States. So, Iowa, you helped begin the political revolution in 2016. And with your help on this campaign, we are going to complete what we started here. Now, as some of you may have heard me say, I'm a United States Senator. I have a big ego. It's what senators have. But here is the simple truth, and I say this all over the country, and this is the truth. It is not me, it is us. And I say that because that is a profound truth. All of you know, anybody here who knows anything about American history understands that real change has never taken place from the top on down. You can have the best intentioned, most honest president in the world, but that president cannot do it alone. Because here is a truth that I think no other candidate will tell you. And that truth is that the power of the special interest in this country, and I'm talking about Wall Street, and I'm talking about the insurance companies and the drug companies and the military industrial complex and the fossil fuel industry, and all of these people, they have so much money and they have so much power that the only way we beat them, the only way we transform this country is when millions of people stand up and say loudly and clearly, enough is enough. I can't do it alone. I need your help to win the Democratic nomination, need your help to beat Trump. But I will need your help the day after the inauguration, because we have a lot of work to do, and we got to do it together. And let me tell you what I mean. Today, as we stand here in Davenport, we say to the private health insurance companies, whether you like it or not, the United States will join every other major nation on earth and guarantee health care to all people as a right, not a privilege. This is not a radical idea, all right? I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border in Burlington, Vermont. Do you know how much it costs when Canadians go into a hospital for cancer therapy or for a heart transplant? That's right. Their only cost is the parking fee in their parking lots, which I guess is expensive. But other than that, that is what a democratic, civilized society is about. When you get sick, you should go to the doctor and not worry about a high deductible or a copayment. If, God forbid, somebody in your family ends up in a hospital, you should not worry about your family going bankrupt. We have a dysfunctional healthcare system which costs us, and this is an important point to be made. We spend twice as much per capita on healthcare as do the people of any other nation, yet our life expectancy is lower, by the way, and going down, and our healthcare outcomes are in many cases worse. Twice as much, we're getting less value. The goal of healthcare, and I know this is you ready for a really radical idea? The goal of a rational healthcare system is to provide quality care to all in a cost-effective way. It is not to make billions in profits for the insurance companies and outrageous compensation packages for their CEOs. This is what a dysfunctional healthcare system is. In 2017, the top 65 healthcare CEOs, 65 people, made $1.7 billion in compensation. Now, I know that here in Iowa you are familiar with United Health, right? Well, I don't know that you know that the CEO of that company, David Wichmann, made $83 million in compensation last year. We need a healthcare system that invests in disease prevention, invests in doctors, invests in nurses, invests in dentists, and make sure that we have clinics in rural areas all over this country. We don't need a healthcare system which simply makes insurance companies and their CEOs super rich. So tonight we say to the insurance industry, yes, we will pass a Medicare for all single-payer program. And today, when we talk about health care, we say to the pharmaceutical industry, you will no longer continue ripping off the people of this country and charging us by far the highest prices in the world for the prescription drugs that we need. I am tired of hearing from people all across this country who lost loved ones because they could not afford the medicine they desperately needed. That is right. Now imagine this. This is a dysfunctional healthcare system. You're sick, you go to the doctor. Doctor writes out a prescription to address your needs. 1 out of 5 Americans cannot afford to fill that prescription. The outrageous greed of the pharmaceutical industry is going to end. We are going to cut prescription drug costs in half in this country. And today, we say to Walmart, which is one of the largest employers in the Quad City area, and other low-wage employers, pay your workers a living wage. Here in Iowa and in many parts of this country, workers are trying to get by on $8, $9, $10, $11 an hour. And you know what? You can't get by on $9, $10, or $11 an hour. So yes, we are going to raise the minimum wage in this country to a living wage, $15 an hour. Nobody who works 40 hours a week in America should be living in poverty. And yes, we're going to make it easier for workers to join unions, not harder. And let me just say a word about the success that we're having on that area. When I was here 4 years ago and I talked about $15 an hour, it seemed to be a radical idea, more than doubling the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25 right now. Well, guess what's happened? Since then, 6 states in the country have passed minimum wage laws of $15 an hour. And a few weeks ago, the U.S. House Committee on Labor and Education reported out a bill that will raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. And today, we say to the American people that we will rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our rail system, our water systems, our wastewater plants. I know it's a radical idea, but in America, when you turn on the tap in your home, the water that you drink should be clean and drinkable. And when we look around this country, one of the real outrages is how we treat the most vulnerable people, including our children. This is America. We should not have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. We should not have a dysfunctional child care system. If you are a working parent, in America, you have the right to know that there is quality, affordable child care for you, and that your kid will thrive in that care. And that is why we are going to establish universal pre-K in this country. And today we say to our young people, tell you a story. Just yesterday, 2 days ago, met with some young people in Washington in my office. They are teachers getting graduate degrees. That's right. Thank you, teachers. And one young man said, "Yup, I'm proud to be a teacher, but I got to tell you, when I leave school, I'm going to be $180,000 in debt." I have talked to doctors in Vermont $300,000 in debt. Dentist here in Iowa, $400,000 in debt. People should not be punished with never-ending debt simply because they got the education that they needed. I mean, it is just basically crazy once you start thinking outside of the box. Why should people be punished because they do the right thing and get an education? And that is why we understand that in the year 2019, when we talk about public education, it means making public colleges and universities tuition-free. Now, and it also means, let me ask you guys a question. How many people in this room are dealing with student debt right now? What kind of interest rates are you paying? Anybody know? All right. We are going to substantially lower student debt in this country. Today, we say to Donald Trump and the fossil fuel industry that climate change is not a hoax, but is an existential threat to our country and the entire planet. And we intend, whether the fossil fuel industry likes it or not, to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energies. And thank you, Iowa, for being one of the states helping us move in that direction. And when we do that, by the way, we're going to create millions of good-paying jobs, weatherizing our homes, creating an efficient transportation system, and aggressively funding wind and solar. And look, the bottom line here is not complicated. And that is what the scientists are telling us, is that we have 12 years to aggressively move forward in transforming our energy system, or else the damage to this planet will be irreparable. And in my view, we have a moral responsibility to make certain that the planet we leave our children and grandchildren is a planet that is healthy and habitable. And today, we say to the prison industrial complex that whether they like it or not, we're going to bring real criminal justice reform to this country. This is America. We should not have more people in jail, disproportionately black and Latino and Native American, than any other country on earth. That's not what this nation is about. We will not continue to spend $80 billion a year on jails and incarceration. We're going to invest in jobs and education for our young people. And when we talk about real criminal justice reform, we are talking about no more private jails and detention centers. No more war on drugs. And this is another area where we have made real progress in recent years. Last time I was here in Iowa, when we talked about legalizing or decriminalizing marijuana, it was thought to be a radical idea. Ain't radical anymore. State after state is moving in the direction of legalizing the possession of marijuana or decriminalizing it, and some states and communities are beginning to expunge the records of those who are arrested for possession of marijuana. By the way, when we talk about real criminal justice reform, we are going to change a system in which tens of thousands of Americans every single year get criminal records for possessing marijuana, but not one major Wall Street executive went to jail for destroying our economy in 2008. No, they didn't go to jail, they got a $1 trillion bailout. We believe that justice applies to all people, even if you're a Wall Street executive. Today, we say to the American people that instead of demonizing the undocumented immigrants in this country, we're going to pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. Now, people say to me, well, Bernie, you got a lot of good ideas. It's great. You want to do this and that. How are you going to pay for it? That's a fair question. And let me tell you as clearly as I can. How many folks here know how much Amazon paid in taxes last year? Amazon, just one corporation, made $11 billion in profit last year, paid nothing in federal income taxes, happens to be owned by the wealthiest guy in the country. So we are saying to Amazon, and we're saying to other major corporations, and we are saying to the top 1%, yes, under a Sanders administration, you are going to start paying your fair share of taxes. We will no longer tolerate the wealthy and large corporations stashing trillions of dollars in tax havens throughout the world. That's going to end. And today we say to the military-industrial complex that we will not continue to spend more on the military than the next 10 nations combined. We are going to invest in affordable housing. We are going to invest in public education. We are not going to invest in never-ending wars. And they deserve it. Brothers and sisters, we are going to win this election not because we have a super PAC funded by billionaires. We're going to win this election because we will put together the strongest grassroots coalition in the history of American politics. Donald Trump and his friends want to divide this nation up based on the color of our skin, based on our country of origin, based on our gender, our religion, or our sexual orientation. Our campaign and our government are going to do exactly the opposite. We are going to bring our people together, black and white and Latino, Native American and Asian American, gay and straight, young and old, men and women, native born and immigrant. We are going to wage an unprecedented grassroots campaign here in Iowa and across this country, and I am really excited and enormously proud to tell you that we have over 1 million people who have already volunteered to participate in this campaign. And one of the areas that we are going to be focusing on in this state and in Vermont and all over this country is the needs, the very serious needs of rural America, needs that have been ignored for too long. In my state and in your state, and Vermont is one of the most rural states in this country, we have seen more and more young people leave our small towns that they grew up in and that they love. Not because they don't want to stay there, but because there are fewer and fewer decent-paying jobs. We have seen schools and churches and community centers shut down and once vibrant main streets become boarded up and deserted. In Vermont, in Iowa, and all across this country, we have seen family farmers go out of business as the prices they receive for their products decline rapidly, and large agribusiness corporations and factory farming take over the industry. We have seen rural hospitals and nursing homes shut down, and not enough doctors to provide the quality health care that rural Americans require. Tragically, instead of seeing good jobs, education, and health care coming into our rural communities, we are far too often seeing despair and depression. And we are seeing what the doctors call illnesses of despair, and that is alcoholism, drug addiction, and even suicide. And I know Kim talked about the opioid problems here in Iowa, which is true virtually all over this country. Brothers and sisters, we need policies for rural America that represent the needs of working people and farmers, not agribusiness and multinational corporations. Growing up on a farm, growing up in rural America, growing up in a small town can be a wonderful, wonderful experience. Everybody knows everybody. It is a good thing. So we have got to work as hard as we can, and it's not going to be easy, but we have got to rebuild rural America and make it a place where the young people stay and not leave. Brothers and sisters, together as billionaires and large corporations have attacked trade unions, destroyed pensions, deregulated the banks, and slashed wages, we have fought back. We have succeeded in raising the minimum wage in many parts of this country to $15 an hour. We have forced corporations like Amazon and Disney to pay $15 an hour. And we have supported teachers all across this country who have stood up for their kids and for decent education. We have made progress, as I mentioned just last week, in beginning the effort to end never-ending wars and for Congress to reassert its constitutional responsibility. We have made progress in fighting the so-called war on drugs and moving toward the legalization of marijuana. So despite who is in the White House right now, I want to report to you that in many areas we are changing the conversation, and state after state is moving forward in doing the right thing. Now, in the next couple of months, you're going to see a lot of folks passing through Iowa. And one of the things that I do love about Iowa is that you take these issues seriously, you listen to the candidates, you engage in debates, you respect grassroots democracy. I think that that is a fantastic thing. And you're going to hear many folks, and I have to tell you, some of these people are my good friends who will be coming before you, and they're going to be telling you what their vision is for America. And I just want to say a few words about what together I want to accomplish when we're in the White House. Thank you. When we are in the White House, we together are going to enact a federal jobs guarantee. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? It's not a new idea. This is something that Franklin Delano Roosevelt talked about in 1944. What does it mean? Think for a moment about all of the work that has to be done in this country. Our infrastructure is collapsing. We can create millions of jobs rebuilding our roads and bridges and water systems. We have to transform our energy system. That's going to take an enormous amount of work. We need universal pre-K. We need a whole lot of great young teachers who are going to be working with our little kids. We need to strengthen public education. We need teachers there. We need more doctors and nurses and people working on health care, because we're going to provide health care to everybody. We are an aging society, and our seniors are going to need more help. There is enough work to be done to transform this country. We need workers to do it. Let us make sure that we guarantee jobs to all those workers who are prepared to do it. We don't talk about it much, and it may not be as serious in Iowa as in other states, but we got a major housing crisis. Millions of people are spending 40, 50, 60% of their limited incomes on housing. Let us build the millions of units of affordable housing this country requires. When we are in the White House, we will move aggressively to end the epidemic of gun violence in this country. I come from a state where a lot of people hunt and a lot of people own guns. But in Vermont and all over this country, people understand that there are folks who should not have guns. And by the way, after that terrible, terrible shooting in a mosque in New Zealand, the government of New Zealand moved very rapidly to ban assault weapons. I think that that makes sense. And when we together are in the White House, we're going to not only move to end the inequities and the disparities of income and wealth in this country, we're also going to end the racial disparities that exist in America. Three people should not own more wealth than the bottom half of America. White families should not own 10 times more wealth than black families. The infant mortality rate in the African American community should not be 2.5 times what it is in the white community. So together, and this is long, long, long overdue, one of the great stains in the history of this country, but together we will end institutional racism wherever it exists. And I want to say something that gets to the heart and soul of what America is supposed to be about. America is supposed to be a democracy, meaning you got to vote and you got to vote, and majority rules. Now, I have run in many, many elections in Vermont, and sometimes I've lost and sometimes I have won. But I swear to you, it never once occurred to me to be thinking about, in parts of the state where we don't do so well, to say, you know what, how do we figure out how to keep those people from voting? They might vote against me. Never occurred to me, and never occurred to most candidates. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. That's politics. So I say to those cowardly Republican governors all over this country, if you don't have the guts to participate in free and fair elections, get out of politics, get another job. These cowards know that their ideas are not going to win the day, so the only way they think they can win is preventing people who will vote against them from participating. That is not what America is about, and we're going to change that. In America, if you're 18 years of age, you're eligible to vote. End of discussion. And when we together are in the White House, we are going to protect a woman's right to control her own body. Now, I understand in Iowa, many parts of this country, this is a controversial issue, and I appreciate that. But all that I want to say is this. I get tired of hearing my Republican colleagues say, you know, we want to get government out of the lives of the American people. You hear that every day, right? We believe in small government. You want to do whatever you want to do. It's not government's business to get into your life, except if you are a woman. There are people who are pro-choice, people who are pro-life, but that decision must rest with the woman, not the federal government, the state government, or the local government. The struggle that we are engaged in, and I want to be very clear about this, is not just about defeating Donald Trump, as important as that is. This struggle is about taking on the incredibly powerful institutions that control the economic and political life of our country. All of you have one vote, and I hope you exercise it. The Koch brothers, they have one vote too, but they can afford to put $400 million into the political process to buy candidates all across this country. And when we talk about power, it's not just the political power that the wealthy have. I'm talking about the power of Wall Street. I'm talking about 6 financial institutions that have assets equivalent to 54% of the GDP of America. 6 institutions that control the flow of trillions of dollars. I'm talking about the insurance companies. I believe in Medicare for all. But I also know that we are not going to succeed in getting Medicare for all unless we have the courage to take on the insurance companies and the drug companies. Mark my words, pretty soon you'll be seeing ads on television telling you how terrible Bernie Sanders is and how awful Medicare for all is. These people have unlimited sums of money. I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Their goal is to defend the profits of the insurance companies and the drug companies. We are going to take them on, and we're going to defeat them, and we are going to have a healthcare system for all. It's not just Wall Street and their power. It's not just the insurance companies and the drug companies. We're talking about the military-industrial complex. They got lobbyists all over Washington, D.C., more and more money for weapon systems, many of which we don't need. I'm talking about agribusiness who work overtime to try to destroy family farming in this country. We're talking about the prison industrial complex. We're talking about the fossil fuel industry, among others. What's my point? My point is that if we are going to transform this country, we need to stand up and fight back in a way this country has never, ever seen. Are you prepared to do that? There's nothing that I have talked about this evening, honest to God, that is radical. Much of what I've talked about already exists in other countries. I remember a couple of years ago, I was in Washington, and I was talking about that in Europe, you know, public colleges and universities are free. And some young man from Finland jumped up, and he said, Senator, no, you're right, it's not free. They pay us to go to college. All right? Health care exists. Universal health care in almost every major country on earth. Seniors get better retirement benefits in most countries on earth. These are not radical ideas. But what we have right now is a government dominated by big money interest. Who in Iowa, how many people in Iowa, I am more than aware that Iowa voted for Trump, but how many people in Iowa actually believe, as Trump does, that we should give over $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1% and major corporations, and then make massive cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and education? Very few people in Iowa or America believe that, but they are able to do that because they have very wealthy and powerful special interests behind them. So, my friends, we have an enormous amount of work to be done. And again, the point that I've made, try to make tonight over and over, yup, we got to win the Democratic nomination. Yup, we got to beat Trump. But if you think that's the end of it, it is not. We need to bring our people together to stand up and create the kind of nation that we know we can become. It is not a radical idea to say that in the United States of America, our roads and our bridges should be falling apart. This is America. That people should have clean drinking water. That children should not get asthma because they're exposed to environmental pollution. It's not a radical idea to say that in a competitive global economy, public colleges and universities should be tuition free. Not a radical idea to say that young people should not have to be in debt $50,000 or $100,000 because they committed the crime of getting an education. It is not a radical idea to say that women deserve equal pay to men. It is not a radical idea to say that we should not have more people in jail than any other country, or that we should have 10 million people undocumented without any legal protection in this country. These are not radical ideas. These are what, in almost every instance, the majority of the American people believe in. So, in my view, if we are prepared to stand together, black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay and straight, native with trans, native born and immigrant, if we are prepared to stand together as rural Americans and urban Americans, if we understand that there is no such thing as a red state or a blue state, but that in every state in this country, working people are struggling hard to take care of their families. If we are prepared to stand together, believing in love and compassion, not divisiveness and hatred. If we are prepared to stand together, the truth is, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. So brothers and sisters, this is an historic campaign. We're taking them all on. But we have one thing that they don't have, you know? The 1% has unlimited amounts of money and they have a whole lot of power. And I may not be a math genius, but at the end of the day, the 1% is 1%. We got the 99%. So let us bring our people together. Let us roll up our sleeves and let us create the kind of nation that you and I know we can become. Thank you all very much.
This persistence for the people, education, make a difference, share the fight for 15, and equality for women, comprehensive immigration, and a real black agenda. Medicare for all, yeah, you start to get